edition of Top Prospects. I'm Logan Bourandas, joined alongside my fellow Milwaukee Brewers fan in Chris Lemmo. It's been a few weeks since we've had one of these shows, and the MLB season just a few weeks already into the new season. So, Chris, got to open it up with you. Already jumping ship from the Phillies.
Listen, I've never been a big Phillies guy. I don't know who you could be talking about there. Always been a big Brewers guy. It's been a rough I'll put it lightly, opening like 2 weeks of the season for the Phillies. We'll get into that a little bit, but definitely nice to watch a team that actually has like competent pitching and like a good bullpen. It's like it's almost like a culture shock watching like Familia just serve up tank shots for the Phillies out of Coors and then watch like Josh Hader nail down 2 saves in a row for Milwaukee. But it's funny, in all honesty, the game that I did go to out there, they lost 10-1 to St. Louis. So I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. I get to finally see a good team play and they get blown out. But rough start for the Phils. Brewers look good though.
It just doesn't matter where you go, the losses just keep on coming. But yeah, definitely a lot to talk about here. And I think we're going to go division by division, kind of see where teams are at so far in the end, kind of talk surprises, disappointments to open up the year. So let's start out with the NL East, because as of today, the New York Mets, as my team at least keeps on winning, they're the only team right now with 10 wins so far on the year. And they are the only team in that division with a winning record.
Listen, I thought this was finally going to be because we delayed the podcast for different reasons after the whole Schwarber and Castellanos signing, and I was like, oh, this is going to be my podcast, right? Finally, a one where I get to be happy, and then of course it turns out the Phillies look horrible, the Mets look great. I mean, in all honesty, the Mets are, again, the only team with a winning record right now in the NL East. I mean, I said before the season, I know that there's that whole culture of, well, it's the Mets, they're going to choke. But I've said this before. I don't know that that's fair to say because there's nobody really left from that old administration, right? I mean, a lot of the front office is new, the ownership is new, Buck Showalter is new. So to me, I don't know. I think it's unfair to just assume that this team is going to eventually collapse down the stretch. I mean, they look to be built pretty, Mets proof, so to speak. I mean, the lineup is deep. The pitching staff, I mean, when you have guys like Tyler McGill stepping up and looking like, not completely like DeGrom, but somehow he's sitting like 98, 99 now, which is shocking to me. I mean, when you have those kind of guys stepping up, I don't see how this team doesn't win the division in my mind.
Yeah, right now the Mets have gotten off to an amazing start. And you mentioned part of it. This team is deep, and the rotation right now is looking like the best in baseball, not just one of the top rotations. It's the best rotation. And it's not even at full strength yet. Jacob deGrom, he's out until probably around June 1st. Taijuan Walker got hurt in one of his first starts, and he's going to be out for just a little bit longer. And in their places, you've had Tyler McGill, who had a really great first 2 starts against the Nationals and Phillies. Then against the Giants, he struggled a bit, but he still managed to go 6 innings, which was amazing. And he ended up pitching pretty okay. And then David Peterson as well has found a spot as a potential long reliever for this team in the near future. So it's definitely been a positive sign. And even when guys like Brandon Nimmo, Mark Canha, they're out due to COVID, the Mets offense still finds ways to win. You have Travis Jankowski, Dom Smith, kind of as role players in that outfield, and that's not even to mention guys like Starling Marte, who've gotten off to a hot start since joining the team. I mentioned on a Sports Night segment, Starlight, Star Bright, he's doing pretty well in New York. He has done that so far, and Max Scherzer as well. He had an amazing first start at Citi Field, only allowed 1 hit and 1 run through 7 innings. So he's done pretty well there too. So it's going to be a fun team to watch moving forward, and especially as the rest of this division. And we'll see what happens with that NL East for now, because the Braves got off to a slow start last year too. You don't know what to expect from there, but I think the Mets right now, they've definitely looked like they can be front runners.
Yeah, for me, I mean, we haven't really done like a MVP pick, Cy Young pick for in the preseason. For me, Lindor could be a sleeper for MVP. I mean, I think people kind of forget how good he was in Cleveland. Like he was ridiculously good. And I mean, I think you've seen some of that early on so far this season. I mean, he looks like he might be back to what he was in Cleveland, which is just a superstar. So I mean, that lineup is deep. And again, guys like Dom Smith haven't really been hitting, and JD Davis. I mean, once you get some of those other pieces going, it'll be really good. But yeah, I mean, so far, the additions of Marte, Escobar, and Canna have been huge. I mean, if you look at outside of those three guys, I mean, Pete Alonso's been fine. Nimmo's been good. But I mean, those three additions make that lineup just so much better. I mean, Eduardo Escobar, all three of them have been about as good to start the year as you can expect. I mean, I know Canna was out for a couple games there, but I mean, he came back the other day and looked great. So those additions have been huge. The bullpen has been the bullpen. I mean, Drew Smith looks really good. I mean, and Edwin Diaz again has not been bad. So there might be some issues outside of that, but I mean, with how good the starting pitching is, I'm not sure that the bullpen will need to be, otherworldly. But I mean, so far on paper in this division, they have the best rotation, and the lineup, which I thought was going to be probably third best behind Atlanta and Philly, so far has outperformed both of them. I mean, you could probably tell me too, but a lot of the stats right now, they're leading, they're on the leaderboard for most runs, most hits right now in the league.
Yeah, that lineup's definitely been shining right now. And to couple that with a Phillies lineup that's kind of been comparable to the Lakers in the NBA, just kind of a little disappointing so far on that front. And Atlanta's kind of struggled to pick things up. Although Ronald Acuna Jr. is in AAA right now, he's very close to potentially coming back. So we'll see if that kind of changes. But yeah, definitely been disappointing, kind of outside of the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, the Phillies have been offensively leaning on Alec Boehm, who there's been a lot of drama around him. There always is a lot of drama around him. Um, really, him and Johan Camargo from Atlanta basically been leading the charge, and Castellanos, I guess. But like Schwarber, Hoskins, Harper, even Segura have not been great at all so far. The rotation doesn't look as good. I mean, as a whole, that team is, I mean, I don't want to say lucky to be 5-8, but they have not played well at all. I mean, especially offensively, they've, their run and their a lot of their offensive numbers are inflated just because they'll put up like 10 runs or 9 runs and then they'll go silent for the next 3 games, which is pretty unproductive. But as a whole, I mean, yeah, I do think the Mets come away with this division, and I think Atlanta and Philly are both fighting for wild card spots. I definitely think Atlanta gets one. Philly, it's kind of going to depend on what the rest of the NL looks like. By the way, I don't know if this will happen this year, but really the one position the Mets don't really have nailed down is catcher. And Francisco Alvarez has been just otherworldly in Binghamton so far to start the year. I don't know that he would get the call this year, but like you have to feel really good between him and Beatty and everybody about, this lineup going forward as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And obviously you saw a lot of these guys in Binghamton last year, but Francisco Alvarez has been insane so far. He's got an average in the high 300s right now, and he's leading the charge alongside guys like Brett Beatty, who you just mentioned before. So definitely a bright future for some of these Mets bats. I don't think Alvarez comes up this year. I think maybe we could see him potentially next year. But we'll see what James McCann kind of does for the rest of the year, because he did sign a big 4-year contract last off season. So I think they want to get at least halfway through that before kind of making a move to go younger in that position.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think I just saw something about, I think McCann got booed today or something, which I mean, look, I mean, if you're getting paid a lot and hitting in the low 100s, that's what happens in Philly, New York, or Boston. So, um, but I'm assuming they'll probably give him a pretty long leash just because of that contract. But yeah, I mean, in my mind, I think the Mets come away with that division, but not you know what, I'm not enjoying talking about all this Mets love. So let's move on to the NL Central or the AL East, whichever direction you want to go in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we can move on to that NL Central and talk about your new favorite team in the Brewers. And the Cardinals and the Brewers are the only two teams winning records in that division. The Cubs are an even 500 as we speak, and then the Pirates and Reds both well below 500 at this point. So, taking a look at this division, what have you seen so far?
Yeah, I mean that Cardinals lineup, I kind of said before that, or at least I think I did on the segment I did about, we did NL previews, and I said that it was really gonna come down to the Cardinals lineup versus the Brewers pitching, because the Brewers pitching is really good, but the Cardinals by far have the best lineup in that division. And so far it's been the Cardinals bats that have won out. I mean, Nolan Arenado has looked really good in St. Louis. Really, that entire lineup has. Tommy Edmonds looked good, Tyler O'Neill. So I really think that they're gonna have a good year. Also, just because the way it would work out with Pujols and Adam Wainwright having their last year there together. As much as I have a strong dislike, the Cardinals are one of those like five teams, I would say, which two of which are outside the NL East, the Yankees and the Cardinals. I just have this irrational hatred for. But I do think that the Cardinals are going to be a great story, just because I think Pujols and Wainwright are both going to get to the playoffs for kind of that last run, so to speak. I don't know how far they'll get. The thing that worries me is that outside of Wainwright and Michaelis, they don't really have any starting pitching depth. I mean, I believe they have Jordan Hicks, who was their closer for a while, starting games for them now. That's going to be the issue. If Wainwright and Michaelis go down, I don't know how they can hang on unless they make some big moves. Because I mean, when you look at a team like the Brewers, they can throw out, Burns, Woodruff, Peralta. Eric Lauer had like a 2 ERA, or I think it might have been below 2 ERA in the second half last year. They've got one of the top pitching prospects in Ashby. So they're loaded on the pitching side. So I think if St. Louis stays healthy, they win the division. If not, though, then Milwaukee.
Yeah, and as a Mets fan, I do agree that there's just kind of this hatred for the Cardinals that I'm really not going to be able to get past. But it definitely has been fun to see Pujols back in a Cardinals uniform. I mean, it just feels right after so much time kind of declining with the Angels, and now Pujols back with the Cardinals for the first time after winning that World Series back in 2011. And there's been a lot of fun highlights with him trying to steal third for no reason and just his lack of speed, which he's had for a while, but now it's just being talked about more because it's his last season. But he's actually playing pretty well in St. Louis so far to open up the year alongside Nolan Arenado, like you mentioned. He looked like a potential MVP candidate at the start of the year. He's been playing really well. But yeah, that rotation, it has been kind of thin for a while now. I mean, especially with kind of the injury issues that Jack Flaherty had last year, and just he's been kind of like inconsistent over the past couple of years. So definitely going to be a lot of questions there, kind of how the Cardinals can kind of fix that. I know there was some rumors with a different team, the Chicago White Sox, with acquiring a guy like Frankie Montas, and that kind of fell through. So maybe the Cardinals could be one of those teams that swoops in and gets a guy like that to shore up the rotation. But when you're trying to compete with the Brewers, you do need to have pitching. And we saw how elite that was last year with Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff kind of leading that staff. And I mean, their question's been the lineup. Right now, it hasn't been too much of a problem at the start. They're 8-5 on the year, so we kind of thought that at the start of the year it was going to be another battle between the Cardinals and the Brewers for a playoff spot and to win that division. So that really isn't a surprise so far to see that things are starting out like that.
Yeah, I think honestly, the big surprise to me has been, I mean, I know that they've slowed down a little bit, but Chicago has looked pretty decent. I mean, I don't know how much you've been watching Seiya Suzuki, but he looks like an all-star. I mean, he, I believe, was at one point leading the league, but now he's not for homers. He's 4 homers. More walks than strikeouts, hitting 387 on the year, 11 RBIs. He's already worth one win above replacement, one more. So, I mean, a lot of these guys that come over from playing internationally, it's a little bit of a kind of prove it until you're, I like to see them prove it first before getting the big contract. Um, but he got the big contract coming over from Japan, I believe. Let me see here, 5 years, 85 million. And right now he looks like a bargain on that deal. I mean, I don't know if he can keep it up, but for sure he looks like rookie of the year material right now.
Yeah, my bold prediction with Suzuki at the start of the year was that he would be an all-star candidate. I'm normally pretty high on like the Japanese players that kind of come over, and most of the time recently I've been wrong. But I feel like say Suzuki is probably the safer picks of these Japanese-born players you can get. I mean, he had a great career back in the NPL there. He was great defensively, had great power in the outfield. So I think that he's a great fit in that Cubs lineup so far, and he's showing he's showing that he can definitely be that. He's had a great start so far with the Cubs, and he's the big reason why they haven't really imploded just yet, and maybe the reason why that quick rebuild the Cubs are going for can actually work. But my problem with the Cubs right now has been the rotation. And their top two guys, or the people that are supposed to be their top two guys, in Kyle Hendricks and Marcus Stroman, have been terrible so far. And Marcus Stroman in particular, and coming over from the Mets, he has an 0-2 record, an 8.78 ERA. He's been horrendous through his first three starts, and kind of proving a lot of Mets fans right by getting rid of him and going after a guy like Max Scherzer, even though Stroman probably didn't want to come back to the Mets anyway with stuff that he said. But it's definitely a little concerning with the Cubs moving forward. I mean, it's only been a few starts, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, you are right about that. I mean, Stroman's going to have to be better for this team to really make a lot of noise. Same with Hendricks. I mean, the rotation just isn't deep enough for those two to perform at a, you know, three starting pitcher 3 or 4 or even below level. I mean, they've got to be top of the rotation guys there in Chicago for them to really go anywhere. Now, I do want to move on. I guess if we're going to go to the NL West first, um, we can talk about the Dodgers all you want, but there's a surprise team. But I guess go ahead with your picks there with the NL West.
Yeah, I mean, just taking a look at this division, we knew this was probably one of the tighter races that we see in all the divisions, along with the division that we'll talk about next. But four teams currently have really good records, well over 500 and well over a 600 winning percentage right now in this division. The Dodgers we all saw coming, the Padres we all saw coming, the Giants we maybe would have seen coming, and then the Rockies. They have currently an 8-4 record, and this is a team that a lot of people were surprised signed or went out and signed Chris Bryant, as the roster just didn't look to be too competitive for this year, and they were kind of just starting their rebuild. So to see them performing so well, and especially earlier on in the year against the Dodgers, it's definitely something to take a look out for as we get kind of later into this month.
Yeah, I had the unfortunate experience of watching some of those Phillies Rockies games, and I don't really know. I mean, I knew CJ Crone had a really good year last year, but like, when did he turn into like the best offensive player known to man? Like, he leads the league in homers. Like, this was a dude that I think got DFA'd like not too long ago. And like all of a sudden has turned into probably a top, definitely a top 10 first baseman in baseball, probably top five at this point. I mean, last year hit really well, 28 homers, 281. This year, even better, already 6 homers and 333. I think leads the league as well with 16 RBIs. He's been incredible. And then Charlie Blackmon just torches the Phillies. He's the minority owner at this point. It's so bad. Every time I hear what's that song? Your Love, or yeah, Your Love by the Outfield. It's you would know it's Charlie Blackmon's walk-up song, but it like lives in my nightmares because every time I hear it, I just imagine him hitting a game winner. And shockingly, I don't think he did that against us this time, even though he did. He was batting like 100 before this series and then was hitting like 300 after, I swear. But that lineup is good. I mean, I do think Brendan Rodgers will get it going. Obviously, they have Chris Bryant, CJ Crone, Charlie Blackmon. Apparently, Connor Joe being good is a thing now. But they look not terrible. I mean, there's a reason why I remember a certain someone I did my segment with picked the, not you. This was a certain other someone that loves baseball in Sports Night, picked the Rockies to be in last. And I was like, I don't know. I was like, not that I think this team will be good, but like their lineup isn't horrible. Like I'm taking them over the Diamondbacks any day of the week and twice on Sundays. I mean, not a terrible lineup at all. The pitching staff is not great, but I think that they can again match the Diamondbacks. So I think they're going to be like a team that wins, I don't know, like 70 some games. Now, I do want your thoughts on the Giants having just played them because they were one of those teams that I thought for sure. I was like, okay, this is going to be a team that everybody is going to be like, oh, they're winning 90 some games, but it's going to win like 80 or even, somewhere below 500. But outside of that Mets series, they've looked pretty decent so far.
First of all, that Rockies coming in last take, definitely a hot take. Maybe someone call it rather a spicy take. So definitely very interesting that he was picked. He was picking them to finish in last there. But moving on to the Giants, kind of like you mentioned there, Mets played the Giants in a 4-game series, and Mets took 3 out of 4. They've won all 4 series that they played so far this year, and this one really no different. And I mentioned Max Scherzer had his road start that came against the Giants, but I also mentioned Tyler McGill had probably his worst start of his 3 games so far this season. That came against the Giants as well. So the Mets, they kept the rotation rather consistent against San Francisco, and their lineup, it's definitely kind of taken a drop. And I feel like a lot of fans kind of predicted that this drop would come, kind of losing guys like Buster Posey to retirement. So the bats were definitely a little cold playing this Mets team, and the rotation really took advantage of it. Max Scherzer had a great start, and Carlos Carrasco almost went 8 innings in this final game of the series today. He went 7 2/3, got taken out after a Mike Yastrzemski home run. But overall, this Giants team, they still know how to pitch. They are always still going to be a really good pitching team. Carlos Rondon, who's someone that I really wanted the Mets to sign personally, he had a gem against the Mets, and that was the one game the Mets actually lost. But taking a look overall at their average, the Giants, they're 21st in baseball, 217 batting average right now, and their pitching definitely has been really good as well. They're 4th in the MLB in ERA, right behind the Dodgers, Mets, and Yankees in that race. But yeah, the lineup just hasn't been that great for this Giants team, and we'll see if it definitely gets better. But if you're ranking 1 to 4 of all those NL West teams that are currently fighting for some playoff spots, the Giants are probably the worst lineup. The staff, it definitely could be it's definitely third. I think you'll probably say a third.
Oh, okay, so you are on my side with that. Because I mean, there were some people that were really predicting them to win like 95 games or so, and I was like, I don't. I know their pitching staff is going to be good. I don't see how that lineup can do it, despite Gabe Kapler apparently being a magician out there now in San Francisco. But So I have the fan graphs win totals up here. Just give me a quick over or under. So Dodgers at 96.
I'm gonna go over.
Okay, I'm gonna go over on that too. Padres 91.
I'd say over for that one, but like just over, not like
Hmm.
100.
Okay. I'm I'm actually gonna disagree there. I'm gonna go under on that. Giants 87 wins.
I think under. I think they're a low 80 win team, especially with the Dodgers and Padres out there.
I agree with the under. It scares me just because I feel like I always underestimate them, but I really don't know how on paper that team goes over that. Rockies at 73.
I think they can be a high 70 win team. I'm gonna go over.
I'm going to take the over on that as well. And then Diamondbacks at 68.
Under. Way under.
Yeah, yeah, give me the under on that as well. All right, so I guess let's head to the AL East now.
Yeah, and just taking a look at this division, we knew it was definitely gonna be another four-way race. I mean, not another four-way race. We assumed this would be a four-way race, but it has ended up being that so far. And all four teams that are at the top of that division separated by just 2 games. The Blue Jays holding a slim lead over the Yankees, Rays, and Red Sox. But what are your thoughts right now on this division?
Um, you know what? Give me the Jays to win this division. Um, Also, by the way, have determined that this will be my AL bandwagon team of the year. Um, Listen, this is what we have to resort to when you start out at 1.48. Thanks, Phillies. But the Blue Jays look really good. I mean, I think that lineup, they're a little bit banged up right now. I know Springer's banged up. I believe that they also have, well, Danny Jansen is going to be out a couple weeks. Teoscar Hernandez banged up. So they're not exactly healthy, but of course, they still have Vladdy. They still have Bo Bichette. They still have Matt Chapman, who, by the way, I mean, probably saved the win for them today. I mean, they nearly choked away that game against Boston. I think they look good. I mean, not only that, but the rotation looks a lot better, and that's the big key for them. Alec Manoah's looked good so far. Kevin Gosman looked really good today. In fact, they should have left him in to throw a complete game up at Fenway. Um, I think the rotation's going to be pretty good. They don't have a ton of depth, so I do worry that if somebody goes down right now with Ryu hurt, it could be difficult. But I like the combination better than really any of the other teams. Like I look at the Yankees. I don't know. The Yankees just don't scare me. I know that their rotation has been better. Garrett Cole's looked awful. But Nasty Nestor, who by the way is one of I think my favorite players. He's that like vintage like crafty lefty, like in an era where everybody's trying to throw like upper 90s, 100, and he's meanwhile just like stutter stepping on the mound to throw people off. I think he's hilarious. And a good pitcher too. But I don't know. I just don't see in that Yankees lineup. Yeah, okay, they have Judge, Rizzo, Isaiah Kiner Falefa's not going to keep this up. I don't know. I just don't see anything in that lineup that like really intrigues me. Also, they haven't gone through their typical part where they get banged up yet. Like they're completely healthy right now for the most part, which knowing the Yankees probably will not stay like that for the entire year. So I'm pretty low on the Yankees, actually. I have them at fourth. Then I have the Red Sox second and the Rays third.
Yeah, I definitely like a lot of those picks there. And the Kevin Gosman start, I was going to mention that as well. And he was a big signing coming over from the Giants and really kind of had one of his best starts since coming over. But I think you're right about the Yankees. And I had them at fourth as well. And A guy you didn't mention was Joey Gallo, and he has been absolutely terrible so far this season. He's had games where he's gone 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts. I don't think he has a home run yet to start the season, and he was a prized acquisition coming from the Texas Rangers last year, and he hasn't really shown that so far. So this division's definitely be probably one of the tightest ones we see so far all year, and I do think the Blue Jays will eventually come out and win it despite losing guys like Marcus Semien. During free agency, they were able to find ways to kind of replace his value at certain points during the offseason. And I think their lineup's really going to get better. I mean, I know Vlad Guerrero, but Bo Bichette had great years, but I think that lineup around them is definitely really good coming back for this year. So I'm still going to stick with Toronto, and the Red Sox maybe could make a run down the stretch. I mean, their infield probably one of the best in baseball. With a guy who I have is a very sneaky MVP pick in Rafael Devers to go along with Xander Bogaerts and Trevor Story, who just got signed a few months ago to join that team. So it's going to be a fun division to watch for sure.
Yeah, that one will be a really good division to watch. So first of all, on the Gallo thing, everybody has always, it seems like everybody has always been a big Gallo fan. And I've always been in the minority thinking like he's really overrated. I mean, I know that he hits some tank shots, but like he just does not make enough contact. I mean, I get that the whole like batting average is a relic of a stat. Now I get that, but look, I mean, strikeout percentage is a real thing, and this guy just doesn't make enough contact. I mean, I complain about Kyle Schwarber and his start, but like Gallo has been brutal, and this is not the first time Gallo has been like this either. So I don't know. I think that Yankees lineup to me is just missing something. It's kind of hard to put my finger on what that is, but it definitely doesn't feel right to me. But I do want to get to the projected win totals here in the AL East for over unders. So Jays at 92.
Over for that, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm taking the over on that as well. Now, they have the Yankees in second at 91 wins.
I think they go under there.
Yeah, I'm giving that the Mets thumbs down there. Um, let's go Red Sox at 86.
I think they finish just over.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, I'm gonna go just over as well. Like, I mean, like maybe one win over. Um, Rays at 84.
It's tough to say. It's tough to say under. I think I'm gonna go over there. I think. I mean, the Rays are just always good, and they didn't really make too many off-season moves, so it's really tough for them to kind of drop off. I mean, they're always one of the best regular season teams.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Rays are one of those teams can't really doubt. So I got to take the over there. And then, of course, the Orioles at 65.
Uh, I mean, no matter what, they're not gonna be that good, but I think they'll finish just over.
Okay. Um, it kind of depends on whether they finally call up some of those guys like Adley Rutschman and some of their pitchers. And when they do, I'm I hate to do this to them. I'm gonna have to go under though. Just being in that tough of a division, I think I got to go under.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, you really could have gone either way with that one, but now let's take a look at the AL Central here, and this division's been way up in the air for all five of these teams. As the last place Twins only 2.5 games back of the first place Cleveland Guardians, but they're only at 7-5 so far on the year. So this division, this has been a wild one.
Yeah, I really don't know what to expect. I mean, I think the White Sox should win this division, but Cleveland has looked better than I expected so far. They're one of those teams that absolutely, probably, I guess I should say, deserve to be in that same, category as the Rays and A's, as teams that really are good at finding value at the margins, and the whole money ball thing. Um, they're really good at that. At least, though, I will say they signed Jose Ramirez to that extension, which that dude absolutely deserves it. Like, if Cleveland let him walk, that would have been beyond idiotic. Like, he is a machine. He's been like this for his whole career, but so far this year he's been on another planet. So at least we can finally put some of those trade rumors to rest now. But the White Sox, in my mind, I don't know. The lineup is good, but I guess it's not as good as I thought it was. I mean, like, Tim Anderson's good. Yasmani Grandal, I know he hasn't had the greatest start, but he's good. So is Eloy Jimenez. But it does feel like they're missing something. Yohan Moncada will eventually come back. But yeah, I mean, like, Lucas Giolito being out, Lance Lynn being out, that really hurts. I mean, they can't afford any more injuries to that pitching staff. As it is, just because of the way the season has started and the injuries so far, I thought that they would win this division by a lot. I'm not thinking that way anymore. I think this division could come down to a couple games. And I do think that the team that's in third could be or second, excuse me, is probably Cleveland. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I agree. This one definitely a lot more up in the air than it has been to open up the season. And I was one that thought the White Sox would kind of run away with this division as well. And I still kind of have a lot of those thoughts. I mean, that lineup, it's off to a slow start, but when healthy, you know exactly what they're capable of. Same thing with the pitching staff. When guys like Lucas Giolito, Lance Lynn eventually do get healthy, that staff has potential to be one of the top ones in all of the MLB. But Cleveland, the offense has definitely come out of nowhere. And the legend, at least at the start of the year, of Steven Kwan has been phenomenal with just his stretch of consecutive swings without misses. He almost never struck out to start the season. Not the biggest power guy, but still definitely a very surprising rookie to have on your squad to go along with a kind of rebuilding lineup that's all headed by Jose Ramirez, who you did just say was extended. And thank God for that. I think there were a lot of rumors that the Blue Jays were interested in him, which if they were to get him, that would have been extremely scary for the rest of the league. So the fact that he's still with Cleveland, definitely a good sign there. I was really high on the Tigers at the start of the year. I mean, I had them coming in second in a prediction segment that I did, and I still believe that they could get there. But Spencer Torkelson's had a rough start overall to open up the season, one of the top prospects in baseball, the first overall pick a few years ago. And Miguel Cabrera looking for his 3,000th hit. He's still one away at this point. Still taking on the Yankees, and they intentionally walked him late in that game. So we'll have to wait a little bit longer for that 3,000th hit. But a lot of storylines in this division. I mean, the last place Twins, they signed Carlos Correa for no reason. So definitely a lot kind of up in the air with this AL Central.
Yeah, well, I was really hoping the land of 10,000 rakes would be back, which, by the way, still my favorite shirt ever. Shout out Andrew Destin for that one. Great slogan. I don't know if they still use it, but really a great one. Unfortunately, that was not the case last year. But yeah, I mean, you look over to this Cleveland team. I mean, Jose Ramirez, first of all, 4 homers, 20 runs batted in, batting 426 is just absurd. Like, just ridiculous. I got to look what his actual contract extension was for. I'm pretty sure it was 7 years, 141 million, which is a steal in my opinion. But yeah, really good signing for Cleveland. Overall, though, this lineup looks a lot better than I thought it would be. I mean, Stephen Kwan, as you were saying, 9 walks to 3 strikeouts. Like, that's pretty incredible stuff. And he's batting 382. I know the power's not there, but look, if you're hitting like that and getting, it goes back to the money ball thing. Why would you want him on your team? Because he gets on base. That's why you want a guy like that on your team. I mean, I'm absolutely putting a guy like that on my team. We'll get to the Angels because they've got a guy like that who I'm a big fan of. Haven't talked about him in a very long time. That was one of my favorite bits on the pod that had been going for a while. Got to get back to that one, but yeah. So Stephen Kwan's kind of like his like him 2.0. We'll get back to him though when we do the AL West. But overall, this Cleveland team could be dangerous. I mean, I don't expect Kwan and um, Ramirez to keep this up, but Franmil Reyes will eventually get going. Some of their other guys will eventually get going to balance it out a bit. And the pitching. I mean, Cleveland's always been a pitching factory. I mean, one of the only teams in my mind that I can think of that has all of their starters drafted and developed by that organization. So pretty impressive stuff going on there in Cleveland. I definitely think they'll stay competitive right up until the end with that White Sox team. Now, to get to those projected win totals, these surprised me a little bit. I kind of thought that these were a little low. So I'll go first place. It has White Sox 86.
I'd still go over with that one. I still think that the White Sox can get healthy and still make a run to come out on top.
Okay. You know what? I'll play Devils. Well, because if they go under 80, my thing is I want to say under, but if they go under 86 wins, I just don't know how they win the division. I guess I'll go over, but not by much. Like, I mean, like 87 wins, 88 max, something like that. Guardians here, Cleveland at 79.
I think they're a team that can finish close to 500, so I'm going to go just over.
I'm going to go pretty good amount over. I think they could get to like 84, maybe even 85 wins. I really think, again, I don't think that this offense is going to put up as big of numbers as they've done so far, at least in a couple of those games where they've put up a lot of crooked numbers. But I do think that they're better on paper than last year. I think I'd have to go back and look, but yeah, I'm taking the over there at 79. Twins, it has tied with Cleveland at 79 wins.
I'm going to go under for that one. I just can't buy this pitching staff, and I don't think they'll buy them wins.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that. Which makes it an interesting decision for Correa, just because I think he can opt out after this season. I know it's not a long contract. I think it was like 3 years with an opt out after the first year, if I'm right. But yeah, I'm gonna take the under as well. I think probably mid 70s for that team. The Royals of Kansas City at 76 wins.
I'm going to go under for them as well. I think they finish at most in the low 70s.
Interesting. You know what? I'm gonna go with the over, not by a lot. Upper 70s, though, is my thinking. Hoping, Bobby Witt Jr. is gonna get it going at some point. They have a lot of good prospects in the high minors like AAA that I think are gonna see some time. And if they really break out, could really help. So I'm gonna go upper 70s there. And then believe it or not, because this is not who I had in last to start the season, but the Detroit Tigers at 74 wins.
Well over on that one. I was very high on the Tigers going into this season. They improved their roster by a decent amount heading into the season. So I'm going to go with the over on that one for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to go on the over for that one too. Probably upper 70s as well. I do think Torkelson will get it going at some point. Riley Green will get back from his injury probably in May, I think, probably rehab. But to me, I think my take was that he, in spring training, watching him, I thought he was going to be AL Rookie of the Year. He looked really good. I think better than Torkelson, but then got hurt and had to miss some time. So definitely a weird division, and that there's like a lot of those teams in the upper 70 for wins, but like not bad teams, but just like missing a couple pieces from being really good.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. And now kind of moving on to our last division in the AL West. And Chris, I know you talked about Stephen Kwan being a certain player 2.0, but Kwan definitely can't play as many positions as this player we're talking about here in David Fletcher. And his Angels, they're 8-5. They're leading the AL West, and they're one of three teams in that division who are over 500. The Astros just at 500, and the Rangers have gotten off to a terrible start, lost five in a row, and they're 2-9 right now. What have you seen in this division so far?
First of all, I'm glad you mentioned our guy, David Fletcher. Unfortunately, by the way, he's hurt out with a strained hip right now. It's funny. I was drafting. This is kind of off topic. Drafting for fantasy baseball, and went and quickly picked up Stephen Kwan. And now that I think about it, maybe I'll stash David Fletcher later. They're completely my type of guys. That if I'm a GM, I'm like probably no power on my team, but I'm building a team of people that can get on base. Watched Moneyball way too many times. Anyway, but the Angels maybe they're for real this time. I know. I feel like I've said this every year. And they're one of those teams that I always buy into them. And for the last couple years, it was the Cincinnati Reds that I always fall for over and over again. I think this could be the year the Angels finally like have a legit chance down the stretch. I'm not going to say that they're going to make the playoffs, but going into their win-loss total, I would say mid-80s. Like Shohei is that good of a pitcher. Noah Syndergaard, I think, is going to be pretty decent. I mean, he's looked good so far. Granted, the strikeout numbers haven't really been there yet, but his ERA has been fine. Patrick Sandoval has been good. So their pitching has been better. Aaron Loop has been great out of the bullpen, former Met there. So the pitching isn't great, but it is definitely a lot better than it's been. And then, of course, you've got Shohei Ohtani. If Mike Trout can ever stay healthy, he's in the lineup. Rendon, of course. And then Brandon Marsh has been great. Jared Walsh, of course, still in that lineup. So they've got a lot of good pieces in that lineup that I think they're going to be competitive, especially because Houston, I don't think is going to be as good after losing Carlos Correa. I really think that this is a team I look at on paper. They have a better lineup than the Astros right now. 100% would be willing to say that they have the best lineup in the division. It comes down to pitching. If their pitching can be mediocre, then they're going to have a good shot.
Yeah, and that's really been the story for the Angels so far through these past couple of years. And they have neglected the pitching a lot. And this year, they kind of the same. I mean, Noah Syndergaard was on, I think, just a 1-year prove-it deal. And so far, he has been proving it. I will admit that. I mean, his first start, the strikeout numbers weren't there. Second start, these strikeout numbers kind of improved a little bit there. So he's definitely taking the right steps there. And I think last year the Angels, they got off to a decent start, and then Mike Trout got hurt and they couldn't really recover. He was out for the rest of the year. If Mike Trout can stay healthy and be what we've seen from him over these past couple of years, and this Angels team definitely does have a shot to make some noise. It's just a matter of if this team can stay healthy. I mean, it's going to be really hard for Shohei Ohtani to do what he did last year. I mean, that was an amazing feat that he did, both with the bat and on the mound. So the roster is there for him to have some help, but it's just a matter of putting it all together, which is something the Angels just haven't done yet. But looking at the rest of this division, the Astros, they did lose Carlos Correa. They lost Jose Altuve in the IL right now. So the Astros not off to the best start. They should still remain the favorites in my mind. And the Mariners still remain as probably one of the top contenders in my mind. And they've been okay. They haven't lit the world on fire just yet. They've been okay. So still looking for a little bit more out of them. And the Astros aren't not the Astros. The Athletics aren't dead yet. They're 8-6, and a lot of people thought they'd be the worst team in the league or one of the worst teams in the league, and they're 8-6. They're somehow still managing to win games, which I guess we shouldn't be surprised because Billy Bean, Moneyball sort of stuff. originated in Oakland, and this roster that I probably couldn't name five players off of is somehow actually winning some games. I could name one right off the bat, Billy McKinney. He's a Mets legend from last year.
Yeah, it's funny. Oakland, I have to say that's the one team I didn't, because I've learned my lesson there not to underrate them. I kind of, after the Phillies took 2 of 3 against them, and everybody was like, oh, well, they beat, probably the worst team in the league. And I was like, yeah, on paper, maybe. Will they be the worst team in the league? Definitely not. Will they be bottom 5? I would put money that they wouldn't be. I'm gonna be honest. This feels like a team that the Athletics, again, maybe it depends on who they trade away and all, although there's really not much left besides Montas. But um, I think this is a team that they get close to 500 somehow. And you're going to look back and be like, how did this team get there? But they're just one of those athletics teams that somehow finds a way, it seems like almost every game, to be competitive. Of course, their pitching has been pretty good as well. But yeah, in that division, I definitely think it's still Houston's division to lose, but it's really close now. Seattle's definitely knocking down the door. And I mean, Mitch Haniger is definitely, he needs to get healthy. I mean, obviously he has COVID right now, but once he gets back, he has been a little bit slow. But, last year when he did 39 homers, hitting 253, that was huge for that lineup. So definitely need that kind of a season from him again. And then, really just need steps forward from your younger guys. Jared Kelenic and Julio Rodriguez eventually got to get going. But I think it's still Houston's division to lose. But taking a look at the win-loss totals, it's pretty close. So over under time, the Astros at 89.
I'm still gonna go over for that. I still believe, and at the end of the day, I still believe in the Astros get the job done.
Yeah, I'm gonna go over, but like very narrowly. I don't feel confident enough to say that they're better than a 92 win team max. Um, Angels at 85 wins.
I am going to go under for that one.
Yeah, I I think I'll go under. Yeah, you know what? I will go under just because again, they're the Phillies of the West Coast. At some point, they will disappoint. Um, the Mariners at 81 wins.
I'm gonna go over for that one. They finished with 90 last year, and this roster improved a lot in the offseason, so it's easy to believe in Seattle.
I'm going over, but under last year's total. I actually don't think they get to 90 wins. I think they're like an 85 win team. I would actually flip their record with the Angels record if I were running things here. The Athletics at 72 wins, I'm hammering the over.
I'm still gonna go with the under, just barely though. It's gonna be around like 71 to 70. I still don't think this roster can get it done, especially with this division being pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I don't know. I believe too much in that organization, despite nobody else believing in that organization, with attendance being around 2 to 3,000 for the last couple games. Um, them playing Baltimore might be like the toilet bowl of attendance. I mean, really just the two worst attendances of any MLB markets, but still love the Orioles and their fans, of course. The Rangers at 71 wins in last place.
I think I'm gonna go with the under there. That roster definitely not complete to compete right now.
Yeah, I'm taking the under there as well, which, I mean, I'm sure ownership will be not happy about just because of how much money they spent this offseason. But there's still, as much as they want to push that rebuild forward and open up that window, they're still missing a lot on the pitching side of things, in my opinion. Just way too much to get that done right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And That division definitely be really interesting to kind of see what happens with that one. But we took a look at all six divisions, kind of see like what's been going on so far in all of those. And I think that's where we're going to wrap things up here on this edition of Top Prospects. For Chris Lemmo, I'm Logan Bourandas. Stay tuned with us for the entire MLB season as we kind of keep you updated with what's going on and fun storylines to look out for. So with that, that's going to wrap things up, and we'll see you next time.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind the scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.